Welcome back. We are back to another episode of The Gaming Fool, and today we have another deck profile for Spirits, my favorite deck. It's a control style of Spirits. Now, this is a bit of an update from the last deck. Basically, I made a whole revamp of the deck to make it more control focused, have a lot more consistency, make the deck a lot more meaner. You know, just making the deck a little bit better than what it was before. So some of the stuff you see in here is kind of the same, and some of the stuff you'll see in here is brand new. So we have Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon for Dragoon, of course. We have two Amano no Iwatos. So basically the way this card is just to floodgate your opponent, stop your opponent from being able to use their effects. I run two of them because I found three to be a bit too heavy. I found myself drawing them more than I needed to, and I kind of don't want to draw this card. It's better that the card stays inside of the deck. So I found two to be a lot more consistent. And then of course we have our triple Aratamas and Nikitamas. Basically without these three cards, the little fairy or spirit engine wouldn't work, because these guys are searchers into our spirits, the Aratama, and then Nikitama also makes up as part of a draw engine. Also, it's a fairy, so you can pitch it with Herald of the Orange Light. And yeah, it's actually a pretty good card. Both of these two cards, Aratama lets you search for a spirit card, and of your choice, which I would normally get Konohana or any one of the Shino Barons that I need if I need them at that moment. You should be able to ritual summon consistently with this deck every single turn. And you know, obviously not every single duel, because you know, hand traps and stuff like that, you might get unlucky, but for the most part this deck has some pretty good consistency. I'll show you guys in a second at getting you know, the rituals that it needs. Anyway, we have the Konohana Sakuya. What she does is she could just special summon herself from her hand if there's a spirit on the field. So basically you get three monsters if you get Nikitama, Aratama, and Konohana. They basically come as a trio. And then Herald of the, or Diviner of the Herald. This card is just super clutch for ritual monsters. When this card is normal summoned, I can send a monster from my deck, the extra deck, to the graveyard, or deck to the graveyard, and then I get levels equal to that card's effect. And then I can get Herald of the Arc, send Herald of the Arc Light, and then I can get whatever ritual monster or card that I need. And then after that, I'm able to step my plays up. Diviner of the Herald is amazing. If I use her for also for the ritual effect, she will easily get Ava to the field, which we'll talk about Ava in a second. And on top of that, she basically kind of sets herself up to get right back into the hand. And then we have Herald of the Orange Light. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Hand trap negates monster effects. It's good. And then Ava, when Ava is sent to the graveyard, I could banish two light fairies, Diviner of Herald, Herald of the Arc Light, and then I can special summon one fairy, or I'm sorry, not special summon, but I could add fairies with different names from my deck to my hand. So I could get Herald of the Orange Light and Diviner of the Herald right back to my hand, which helps reset plays, and it's really good. And then we have Shino Baron Peacock and Shino Baroness Peacock. These are basically the heart of the deck. This deck really heavily revolves on putting your opponent's cards back into their hand or deck, and being able to do that on your opponent's turn. Basically just to interrupt, and then also to limit your opponent's decision making, so that way you can come in and flood them in with tokens and other ridiculous nonsense, or maybe you could lock them out with a mono and make it to where you could just set up the field or your own cards yourself, which is a lot more better. And then we have a Red Eyes Fusion Herder, and then we have pre-preparation of rites, three of them, pre-prep. I feel like that's a staple. That just allows me to fetch from my ritual card and monster. This card is amazing. run it at 3. Don't even think about it. And then Pot of Prosperity also at 3 because of the type of deck that this is. You need to be able to draw into preparation of rites and whatnot, or any of the ritual cards that you need. So that card is super helpful at being able to make consistency with your deck. And then we have Shino Baron, or Shino Bird Calling, the ritual card that helps you summon for Shino Baroness and Peacock. We run them at 3, very good card. Called by the Grave. I run Called by the Grave because I don't run any hand traps except Herald of the Orange Light. So it's super easy for me to stop a Droll and Lockbird or a Feg Veeler or whomever. Just shut them out with that one card. And then we have 2 Urgent Rituals. Urgent Ritual is super important. It's super important card with this deck because this allows you to ritual summon on your opponent's turn. A lot of people don't realize that Shino Bird Calling's effect. This card is used to ritual summon Shino Baroness Peacock or Shino Baron Peacock. You must also tribute monsters from the hand field, or you can banish the spirit monsters from your graveyard whose level equal or exceeds the level of the ritual monster. So basically, with your Nikitama and Aratama that you use to get all of your resources, you could also use them for a ritual summon on that turn, and then get your 2 free tokens, get your free draws, and then activate Urgent Ritual and banish, Shino Bird Calling from the graveyard, and then banish all of the resources that you need from the graveyard. And boom, right there you get another Shino Baron on your opponent's turn, which you could still activate their effects of adding the cards back, all the spells and traps back to their hand, or back to their deck, or all their monsters back to their hand. And let me tell you, it's amazing, especially if you're playing against like a heavy trap deck and you win first and you manage to set Urgent Ritual and they set their field down, and as soon as they end their turn and you flip Urgent Ritual and you send all those cards back into the deck, that's GG's for the most part. But it's a pretty brutal play, especially for heavy trap based decks, and they can't activate them because they just set they just set all those cards that turn, so they're basically locked in that. And then we have 2 summon limits. Summon limit at 2 is super important because you can't summon at all. You can, but not really well. So summon limit is super good at limiting those options. And then of course, again, if you have summon limit with Urgent Ritual and you make your opponent put all the cards back in their hand or back into the deck when it's their turn, it's pretty brutal. There's not really a whole lot that they could do with it. And then of course, the final thing, Imperial Order. So basically, Amano no Iwato with summon limit and Imperial Order, your gravy. Your opponent can't really do anything unless they're trap focused deck. They are basically shut down, and that's it. Imperial Order just stops spell cards. Yeah, it would stop your own deck as well, but I found this card to be very helpful at shutting my opponent down. And yes, that is the Spirit deck profile. Oh wait, I was about to show the test hand. Before we look at the test hand, we gotta go through the extra deck. Obviously, we run one Dragoon and Elder Etnis. The reason why we run this is just in case we need that destruction. We don't really need a ritual card. We just have to get rid of something. I run her in there just in case. We have Baroness de Fleur because your link monster or your ritual monsters are level 8 and all your synchro materials or your tuner materials are level 2. So why not? Baroness can negate an ability. It's like a free Omni negate. And then we have the Coral Dragon. Oh yeah, also with the Baroness de Fleur. Before I forget this, with Baroness de Fleur, after you use your Omni negate and on the start of your opponent's turn or your next turn, you can put it back into your hand and then special summon the Diviner of Herald all over again. And then, of course, if she's normal summoned or special summoned, you can send another Herald of the Arc Light to your graveyard, and then boom, you get another free card. So Baroness is definitely a really good card. I run Coral Dragon for Halki Fibrix. And then we have Herald of the Arc Light at 2. I feel like I've explained this enough to be in my deck, but basically this card lets me add 1 ritual monster or spell from my deck to my hand when it's sent to the graveyard. Amazing card. We have 1 Mighty Zeus because we run Gallant Granite and Gaga Cowboy. I was about to say Cowboy Bebop. Oh my lord, what is wrong with me today? And anyway, Gallant Granite, this is so that way you can, with the Nikitama, Aratama, and Konohana, you can overlay these two, detach Nikitama, you can add a mono from your deck to your hand, and then you can draw a card from Nikitama because Konohana's still on the field. So that's a really good play too. It doesn't always happen, but it's definitely a nice speed play. And then we have 1 Goddess of the Underworld. I have her just in case I can't reach over a monster, and that's literally it. And Berserker of the Tenyi, it's just a 3000 beat stick in case I'm in a situation where I need something, but usually I use this as material for Pot of Desires. Lena the Light Charmer can also go really well with Nikitama at making link monsters, especially if your opponent has Effect Veiler in the graveyard, and you can kind of just steal that and help extend your plays. Halki Fibrix, of course, to help get my tuners, so that way I could potentially make Deflor. And then we have 1 Predaplant Verde Anaconda because you guys know for Dragoon. And then also Salamangreat Almirage. And the reason why I run this card is because Nikitama, again, if I summon Nikitama and Aratama and Konohana, I could just link Nikitama and then boom, I get one free draw, and I get Salamangreat. So it's actually a really, really good card. Nikitama and Aratama's, they're super staple cards. And yes, that is pretty much the set that I have. All right, so we have a duel. I'll have it testing out right here to see how well we perform. My opponent activating Magician Soul. Ooh. I'm gonna have to say no to that.
What are you talking about, Brock? I don't see any beautiful girls. Just turn around. Misty, please, only one of us can hallucinate at a time.
So, like I mentioned, we're setting up our Diviner of Herald. Oh. Then we are going to activate Diviner of Herald's effect. We will send Herald of the Arc Light, like I had mentioned to you guys. Herald's effect triggers. Will he stop it? Looks like he will not. So I can search for a ritual spell or monster. Oh wow, but I don't think I can summon this card right now because I don't have another. Oh, I do have a spirit monster in the graveyard. So because Konohana's in the graveyard, I can actually activate Shino Baron's Calling, which we are going to activate. We'll activate that. Banish Konohana. Use Herald of the Arc Light. Or Diviner of the Herald, rather. And then now, because of this, I can actually trigger Shino Baroness's Peacock. And then chain block her ability with Diviner of Herald. Diviner of the Herald. I get my card. We'll get Ava, like I had mentioned with you guys. Boom, there goes Ava. Then we're gonna put these cards back into the deck. And here comes a mono. And then we'll go for our deadly attack life point drain. My opponent barely has any cards. So I am going to try to stop my opponent from being able to activate certain effects on me. We're going to set that card for protection. Then we're actually going to send Amano to the grave. And we're going to make Paretta Plant. Then we'll be able to trigger for Ava's effect. We'll banish Herald of the Arclight and the Orange Light to get Herald of the Orange Light and Diviner of Herald. We get these two cards right back. Activate Paretta Plant. Get yourself your free Dragoon. Just because you can. And then end your turn. And your Shino Baron will come right back to you like a good, loyal, faithful companion. I don't know why I didn't get my 2 tokens there. Oh yeah, I know why. Paretta Plant, duh. Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm Feather Duster. And that's all she wrote.
Hey, Misty! The boat's beautiful! Who's it belong to? I don't know. Brock's the one who borrowed it. Guess he has some pretty rich friends.
Boom. There we go.